Evening, guys. Well, it's still Sunday. It's still the 26th of February 2021. 4:46 p.m. My feet are killing me today. That's what happens when you diabetes. It's really out of control and your feet are going neuropathic. Neuropathy's kicking in left and right. I was watching some video gamers online. Facebook, once in a great while, does these live games. Different places, different people doing a lot of damage. Being a former gamer a long time ago wouldn't bother me as much, except for the damn controversy that was surrounding this damn industry for as old as I am. About 50 years more. Pong came out in the 70s. Mid-70s. Basically a table tennis. You're using two dials and you're hitting the ball, the square, going something like that. But that was just the tip of the iceberg that came out. We had stand-ups and we had tabletops, as we called them. And to stand up and tabletop, some of them would resemble each other with the formatting. The game's still the same, except you're standing up and using your controls while you're standing and staring at a damn cathode ray tube screen. And you're trying to fight like crazy. You're using your controllers left and right. Yeah, how about fun? Ranging from preteens through the 20s, or almost early 30s, somewhere in that range. Now, when you're about preteens all the way through the 20s, you're still pliable in your mind. You're still learning a lot of new stuff, and you're still experiencing new stuff. And you're getting a lot of input, shall we say. The variations of the games that came out, the variable games came out, the million, good lord, whatever kind of terminology I can use out of a thesaurus to describe the term many. Burgled and bubbled and bursted out. Video game companies from Japan and the United States, even Great Britain, were pumping it out left and right. That we were going to be going for either sleight of hand tricks on cards, or we're going to full-scale bloody warfare. Blow things up. Blow people up. Much violence. We're flying aircraft. We're doing submarine. We got an Uzi. We have warfare up the yin-yang of different controllers that you would see at the video game consoles. In the 80s and 90s and 2000s, actually for the 70s, the games got faster and wicked, and the reaction times were remarkable. The high scores were pumping it up out there. You would have to continue with the fix as long as you had a continuing stream of quarters to pump into the machines. The machines are greedy as hell. Sometimes one quarter will amount to a certain lifetime where a lot of lives are being wanted. And other times you would have to pump in more quarters to get more people into your game, especially when you have about 2 or 3 or 4 stations. And you're going for the full gamut of going out and killing things and killing people left and right, and they're pumping it out. And they'll quit because they couldn't pump out enough quarters. They ran out of dollar bills. They couldn't, and they run out of their funding. So they're like, next time, and they're ready. They're like, magazines came out in the 80s through the 2000s. Hardcover magazines would talk about the computer programming world, how to program your own video games. Floppy disks changed, mutated into CDs. From the big ass, flat, huge square things to other round circular mirror discs. And in between that time, you had games coming out left and right. But keep this in mind, back in the 80s, there were congressional people, both houses and actually both chambers and both caucuses, parties, were trying to do studies left and right and checking out the psychology and medical reports left and right to see whether or not the video games were the devil's spawn. They took this thing too personally and claimed the damn games were wasted time. Wasted time was an understatement, and they forgot about the addictive quality concerning about when you're already screwed up in the head and you want a video game, you play a video game, you're going to play the damn thing until either you get tired of the damn thing, which is not enough of it, or you're going to kill yourself, or bankrupt yourself, or whatever happens that's going to be adding to more behavior. And this kind of logic and theory wasn't far off. Back then, when the video games were coming out, the addictive level of these things were so great. I can personally attest to only a personal accounts of how many times I kept raiding my mother's piggy bank to feed my own damn habit. She was saving Susan B. Anthony's. I could talk about her right now because she's I think I already paid my debt of $500. More ways than one. Susan B. Anthony's were kind of hard to come by. They were coming out in the 80s. There were quarter-sized dollar currencies, shaped nearly the same like quarters, except they had beveled edges on the outsides, but around the middle edges, they were perfectly round. These earlier versions, anyway. So the video games would take these coins, these metal tokens, of $1 currency each, and use them as quarters, and process them as a quarter, not a dollar. They could not differentiate at the time the difference between a quarter and a dollar, otherwise you'd have more playing time and more lives. But no, I didn't realize it, didn't know about it. How was I supposed to know? I wasn't addicted to these damn games in the first place. They came out, and we saw them everywhere, pizza parlors, and every other place that we didn't expect, and even liquor stores, nationwide. Fun places where families would get together and have entertainment values, including the theaters, both walk-in and drive-ins. And they would pass the time. Kids would just go in there just to play the damn game, screw the damn movie. I mean, they'll pay $2 or $3 maybe to watch a dollar, but they'll play the video games more and more because that was the entertainment right there. If that was the only closest arcade they could find, man, they'd go crazy over it. You had about 3 or 4 arcades shoved in a liquor store area where they usually have storage area, but they put the arcade games in there. The owners knew they were going to get some kids in there. Sometimes at the wrong times. They had to have police coming in there to get them out of there until after certain hours, like after school, and then they could play in there all the time. But up until a certain time. There was only a certain amount of time that you could actually play these games, including how big and bad were you on Galaga, or actually on Centipede or Millipede? How was your aiming when it comes down for Contra? How was your aiming when it came down for Sequels? Battle Zone? How was your steel in that one? Or how was your reflexes when you were playing Star Wars series? They even had the Star Trek. Star Trek had to get out there. Sega and Paramount had to get out there to get their own name for Star Trek out there. Always had to increase Star Trek out there. 20th Century Fox had to get their Star Wars games out there. Had to. Everybody had to. Including, you had a game for capturing Jaws. The film came out in the late 70s, concerning about a shark terrorizing a small island off of New York coast called Amity. Your basis was just to get rid of this damn shark in the game. How many times? I don't know. Or how about the Cold War theme that we had? You played a missile defense alert guy that shot up missiles to protect the cities that you're protecting these days. Use few missiles, but the greatest maximum efficiency, and your cities were your bonus points. You saved them all fine. You saved a lot of your missiles even better. Got even harder and harder. It was so easy to lose in that damn game. So easy. I know, I killed myself in the game too many times. But hell, when it came out with Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, I was a Jedi. Screw the lightsaber swinging at this point over here. My reflexes on the game controllers were even outstanding. As a teenager, I valued them very highly. I was a very recluse kid. Put me on a video game and I don't deal with you ever again. I'm one with the machine. Of course, if I was one with the machine, I would have been winning on Tron games, left and right. Not much of those damn things anyway. I hate discourse. But I can get a fighter, no problem. Shoot your ass down. My eyesight was a hell of a lot better during that time, even though I did wear different glasses. The controversies was there was a hell of a lot more uptake in the violence in the youth. They were trying to correlate figures and information about if the kids were playing so many hours a day on the video games, how is this affecting their mental processes? They went through reports. They had some studies. They took studies. And from these limited studies and these limited actions, the Congress had concluded, certain particular select communities had stated that video games were violent. They brought forth the gamers. They brought forth the production, the developers, the CEOs, tearing anybody and everybody apart, trying to put the moral majority down their throat, saying these games are the devil's spawn. You can't do these kind of games. Are you kidding me? What makes you the right to do this to us? These games are increasing violence. You must do something about them. What was even worse on that, it's not exactly the standalone games. When the games moved into the home, when you brought the DVDs, when you brought the CDs into your home, you brought the cartridges. Games like Grand Theft Auto was one of those primary games that Congress really went after and did reports after reports, news cycles after news cycles. I was watching this, I was reading this damn thing. In the computer gaming magazines, and in the computer programming magazines, in the computer industry magazines and newspapers that they had, periodicals, not to mention every once in a while you see it on the damn news, especially turning into national news. They were trying to make sure that the video games were going to be going away, but they never did, because the gamers got more and more creative, more inventive, more deadlier with the graphics and everything else. But the gamers, the industry itself, didn't want Congress involved in the rating system. They did it themselves. They told the retailers, look, we have to have your guys' help because the games we got right now are only suited for a certain amount of ages over here. Games like Duke Nukem, popular, very popular. Because of the violence and also the nudity in the damn game. And the sexuality in the damn game. It was only suited for the damn adults. But the kids ate them up and so did their teens. So there had to be age brackets on these damn games. Not to mention when you're tearing things apart left and right. Street Fighter, when it came out. The Japanese are popping this thing out. The Japanese were having a field day with the damn thing. I think maybe they still had some violence going on over there, and possibly Congress is also picking up on that one, because if it's violent in Japan, pick it up with the youth over there, it'll pick up over here. Street Fighter and worse. They're ripping off heads, and you see the skull, you see the spine, you see them ripping open the damn body. And believe me, some of those games are pretty damn bloody when you're watching this shit going on. I'm like, cool. I can laugh at this damn stuff because I was a stupid, crazy kid at the time, and I wanted to do those games real bad at home. Ma wouldn't let me. There was no way we were going to be getting any game systems like that to play them. And then when you get into school and get out of school, I still found some of those games still out there floating around in different arcades. You could still tear apart each other. You could still blast each other's head apart. You could still put holes in them. It was better when I started getting a computer for myself and started doing the violence myself. But the thing of it is, what this one guy was talking about in the gaming setting this evening. Games don't increase or don't do the violence. Yes and no. Yes and no. I know they've had studies recently, within the past 3 or 4 years, overseas, in different seminars that they couldn't find throughout their research. And this was in Britain. They were trying to find out whether or not if video games were truly violent. They couldn't find any correlations. In this time period. We got games that can frag and put holes in them or actually blow them up. The thing is, some of the violence we know these days are graphic violence. They're not going to be doing anything, because we've already seen graphic violence all our lives with different movies, television shows. We'd seen it. What was even worse is when we actually saw the actual real thing happening on screen. We saw the bloody bodies, in different forms left and right, when actual war happens. So the video games are nothing, because in our society today, we know what violence looks like. For some of us who've actually lived in different areas, who've seen it day by day, video games are nothing. Reality is a lot more horrible than the video games. And if we had that attitude back in the 80s and 90s, we wouldn't have had a lot of changes like we've had today. Sure, the games are still being sold, and the agents are not exactly being checked out. I know, because as a cashier at one time or another, I did that. Nothing happened. The register stayed locked up. Certain things like alcohol and cigarettes, yeah, would. Those things were against the law. The thing of it is about the video games, it wasn't a law. Not state, not federal. Two different things. Self-imposed, which means it's up to the retailer to say yes or no to sell those kind of games to people, including the kids. Usually it was the teenagers and the adults were getting the damn thing, not the juveniles. And the little tykes. So if I'm going to agree with someone saying video games don't cause violence, I said, it's a yes or no situation. It's providing fuel for a fire. It's already been there already. The fire's already been there. The video game was just an outlet for us to get our damn frustrations out. And when you were growing up as a kid in that kind of environment back in the 80s, it was a different thing. I've seen the guys commenting and they're back in their 30s. I'm in my 50s and I grew up in the damn shit, so it's like I'm hearing people out of their diapers talking about an industry that grew up. And I grew up along with it as a kid, all the way through adulthood. So yeah, there are certain games out there that still retain the violence of having a body still lying around with blood all over the place, because developers have put that way. But there are certain developers that actually put a key or a switch in there saying, turn off the blood, or turn off the graphic. And that's fine. Or when I'm dealing with other games, you see the guy de-res, or just fade away. You nail him, he's dead, he's gone. You don't deal with him again. You don't see the after effects. I've seen other games like that. Even with blaster marks all over the damn place. See the blaster marks, but you don't have to see the damn body, or the shell of it, or anything of it. It's just gone. Remove that element there, and you're still back in the play. Whether or not game actually does create violence in young kids, yeah, actually it does. It helps set up it sets it up. However, we live in a violent world. We got people talking about guns left and right. We've got kids growing up with guns left and right. We've got gun right people out there who are training their kids at 5 or 6 years old how to fire a shotgun, or a long-range rifle, or let alone a damn handgun. And have these kids be so damn skilled at around age 10 years old, they're in competitions left and right with each other, trying to hit targets. So yeah, it's always been with us, except the violent games are part of this thing. Always have been. They're just an outlet. They're an outlet for our own damn stress and frustration sometimes, but we have to find something to take it out on without taking it out on somebody else. But that's what they were afraid of also back in the 80s, because if we're doing that to ourselves back in the 80s and the 90s, and I have to bring this up because that was the time when they were getting more and more prevalent with their ultra-violence and ripping people off and shooting holes in people and leaving blood all over the place, slicing them up in half. You see your entrails right there. Because they were warning us back then about how much of a psychological damage we could have had and should have had. These days, the psychologists hadn't grown up in those time of games, and if they hadn't read all the damn controversies going on from everybody else, they would have different viewpoints. So this is what I grew up with. This is my own viewpoint regarding it. They're part of the cycle. They're part of the violence. The violence is still in us at this point over here, but we still have to choose whether or not we're going to be crazy or not. But sometimes we just don't have a choice. There's a lot of things out there that can make us crazy. If we didn't have the video games, we'd probably have something else. You know, people had come miles and miles away in America's history, the West, to see a good hanging. Convicted people, even though they may have been innocent or not, got hung. People make it into a damn church thing. Kind of a church gathering. Pray the Lord for all these sinners over here. Now let's see the poor bastard hang to death. The kid's like, see, Sonny? This is what happens when you break the law. Don't do that. Otherwise, oh, there he goes. He's taking too long. Would you like another piece of drumstick there? Or better yet, how about public beheadings? The guillotines. And you have people cheering on it. Cheering on it. The public guillotines that they've been having in France because of the revolution. You've had people cheering on the poor beloved, actually the dearly departed at this point over here, as they're losing their heads left or right, even common people. Until actually things change even worse, actually hopefully for the better tonight. But people actually cheered on the violence. There was no cheer when you were seeing a Civil War up close or the Revolutionary War. There was no cheer on that one. Because it was out of control situations. But in control, violent situations. When you're seeing public hangings and public guillotines. When you're seeing possibly a state execution going on. Either by firing squad, or maybe by drug-induced, or maybe we'll get to hang them, or shoot them, or behead them. Well, we haven't had the beheadings. We haven't had the more violent ones. Some people actually were thrilled and went over that kind of stuff. For me, I don't like it. I wouldn't want to see on a cable channel that kind of crap happen. And yet I'd watch the video games and understand the damn thing is all fiction because someone else's imagination can do that. We could write up the story and scenarios concerning about aliens going after humans. And the humans always winning, or is the aliens going to be kicking our ass? Going to make the games for the facehuggers. We can make the Hollywood films as graphic as we want and tell people this is R-rated, R-rated. R-rated is like, oh, G-rated. G-rated is Z-rated, as in sleepers. PG is becoming almost J, almost R, flip-flop on that. We, our society, has grown up, we as a society have grown up with violence in our nature and violence everywhere else that even when we argue the point concerning about is video games part of it, they're not the cause of it, they're not the start of it, but they are in it. They are part of it. They are part of that cycle that we've grown up with. We've already seen it. We've already been accustomed to it, at least the older generations. We've seen it happen. We are accustomed to it because we can fire our weapons at each other if we want to. And use it with laser lights. Or water guns. Or Nerf suction cups, or foam rockets, or bullets at you. Don't tell me video games are not the cause of it. They are a part of it. They will always be a part of it as long as we keep thinking up crap like this, how to kill something else. And as long as it's still allowed, that's what it is. This is not judgmental. This is history happening. All you got to do is read your history books. All you got to do is understand history. Because then you can understand certain patterns that are happening left and right. See, we can't skip the thing. This is part of our nature at this point. We have never been able to be a peaceful, loving society. No, we want to be a war society at this point over here, kicking each other's ass. Even though we want some peace out of the damn thing. Only because we have a superiority complex and we're trying to be the superior idiots and assholes about it. But hell, people don't realize this crap. They don't want to know this crap. They just want to argue about whether or not video games are violent or not. Well, and then people say, well, they're not that violent. But I bet they are violent. They're extremely violent on certain games. I can play a card game and not blow up. Unless you've got the game that's rigged to blow up. Say, for example, if you're going to be playing poker and you happen to win the pot. What happens if somebody actually came up with an idea of having one character do something nasty to the winner? But that's not supposed to be violent because it's supposed to be a card game, right? Or how about you're going to be bowling. You're in your lane and you're bowling. And so far your score is higher. And then the other guy decides, just for a programming trick, make your ball explode just before you actually do something. It's a scary thing, even in real life, just thinking about shit like that. But in video games, anything goes, doesn't it? We have values, we have morals, we have something that tells us that certain things and certain actions and certain ideas are pretty damn bad. Sometimes we don't even cross those lines. But with creativity going like crazy, doesn't matter which particular part of the spectrum we're going, from good to bad, good to bad, good to bad, it still happens. And it depends on whether or not the market is going to be hungry for this. Let's say, for example, we're going to get into miniature golf combat. Why not? We can do the laser tag in the video games. Except we can use the laser guns as phasers and frag everybody. Well, I'm sorry, we're already doing that with the other games, aren't we? Yeah. But miniature golf, okay. How about that in the video game world instead of doing it in real life? Where in miniature golf, you're competing against each other in these wacky courses over here. And if you happen to see the guy still on the green or on the side over there, actually see his ball, hit the ball until the other guy ball moves and then blow it up somehow. You think that's crazy? You think that's lame? It's going to take some time for some kind of developer to think of something like that in the first place if we already don't have that already. As I said before, we got guidelines, we got rules. We don't have laws. We don't have laws coming for the state or federal to deny this kind of crap. Well, trust me, there's not enough outrage. There's not enough outrage. There's still zombies on this one. They'll talk about other things going on. But the video game, they're violent. It depends on which particular game that you're playing. If it's violent enough. If it's just a simple car chase, fine. Add machine guns to the damn thing, and guess what you got? Death race. Good thing when you borrow stuff like that from the movies, huh? Put it into the video games. The movies aren't that violent, are they? Nah, Star Wars is a piece of cake. Tron was a piece of cake. You just take your disc, throw it at a guy, and he did reses. What's the problem with that? Violence in the video games are not the cause of it. No. They're just a continuing symptom of how screwed up and violent we are as a human race. Either we use it as a control valve to get rid of our damn frustrations, our boredom, or we add to it. It's how you're looking at it. It's how you're using it that way. So don't start telling me that video games are not that violent, or not violent, and it causes problems with the kids. No, it just adds to it, that's all. In one particular aspect. In another particular aspect, it may help them get rid of their violent tendencies. But it's a 50-50 crapshoot, depending on which particular kid we're talking about here. I don't care how many blind studies you get. There's always going to be a nut job in there. He's going to be taking it way out there. And that's where some of the hawks are looking at. As I know they did back in the 80s and 90s. These days, they need something absolutely terrifying and terrible to get their damn attention for that particular aspect. Otherwise, they can talk about it all they want in the damn chat rooms. It's still not going to solve a damn thing for them. They can have the arguments for it. They can say it all they want. They can quote other trials. But they really hadn't thought it through because they hadn't been there and done it.